All right. So welcome to the January webinar for the Birth Through 5 Literacy Grant. I'm glad that some of you could be here today, and I do apologize for the pretty last minute notice of the webinar. So yeah, that's a good reason why we record so that everyone can get the same information. And our next webinar, I will let you know when it's going to be during this meeting. So it will not be later notice as it was this time. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. And I hope you've had a decent week. I know by Friday afternoon, most people are pretty mentally exhausted from the work week. So I appreciate you prioritizing this meeting time with us. So, I guess I will introduce myself just because. So I'm a Mowerman. I'm the program manager for both the Early Childhood Equity Fund and this year's Birth Through 5 funds that are associated with ESEF. And I'll pass it to Brandon. Oh, and I use she, her pronouns. Sorry, forgot that part.
Hey y'all, I'm Brandon Harvey. I'm the grant management specialist that oversees Birth Through 5 and ESA funding, as well as another grant through DELT. I use they, he pronouns, and I'm super excited to see some of y'all again and some of you for the first time.
Thank you, Brandon. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. So the agenda today is not super extensive, which is great. We're hoping we just scheduled the meeting for 45 minutes because we didn't want to keep you longer than necessary. So we have an icebreaker we'll start off with, and then I'll give a little program and reporting overview. Some of these are just reminders from the kickoff meeting webinar that we had originally. And because I know folks have all executed their grants and started activities at very different times. So reiterating is never a bad thing. And then we'll get some funding updates and grant office updates from Brandon, and then hopefully we'll have some time for questions at the end. So on to the icebreaker. So I wanted to ask because we're in the season of winter, what is a favorite winter memory or activity from childhood? And typically, I ask that folks, if you're willing and able, put some responses. We call it a waterfall of responses in the chat. And then I also invite anyone who is brave and willing to share verbally. If you would want to come off mute, you don't have to raise your hand or anything, and just share a favorite winter memory or activity from childhood. I can start just to get us started off and say that a favorite winter activity for me was building snow forts with my brother. We often, we had a big brother, little sister dynamic, and so we didn't always get along, but we tended to have a great time together in the winter time, especially when it snowed. And so I did get some snow to the face on occasion, I think, but generally we spent our time in the snow making forts in our yard. So would anyone like to share?
We've got in the chat ice skating at Lloyd's Center or snow play and sports and snowshoeing with family and friends.
Mm,
So yeah, I always enjoyed tubing up on the mountain and then hot cocoa afterwards.
yeah.
Oh, nice. Jennifer, her grandmother had a huge hill in the front of her house, and in the winter, it was like the best sledding hill in town. And they would get rides up to the top and just walk across the street for hot chocolate at grandma's. 10 out of 10, because hot
Ooh,
chocolate is the winter drink.
yeah.
Oh, that's fair. Not much of a winter scene in LA, or in
Yeah, I
Southern
figured this question
California.
would be a miss with some people because
Absolutely.
I mean, if winter is not actually what we consider in the PNW to be wintry, that's fine. Whatever winter looked like where you lived growing up. Still a valid, obviously, memory and activity to share. So,
A lot of sledding, a lot of baking.
I grew up in Southern California as well, and but my parents had a cabin up in the San Bernardino Mountains, and we would
Mm.
go up, yeah, and we would pick mistletoe off the trees, and
Oh,
then we would
cool.
bunch them up and sell it for like money for presents, you know. And so,
Whoa.
Nice.
anyway, I kind of
That
miss that.
that involves a fun activity and turning it into a profit. I like that model. I don't think I've ever noticed mistletoe out and about. Maybe I haven't actually seen it, but
You gotta
definitely
look
know
up in the
it.
trees.
Yeah, I guess it's a parasite to the trees.
Oh,
So it
Mm.
helps the trees
ah, you're
you know,
cleansing the
take it off
environment.
and yeah.
Yeah, perfect. It's a win-win.
Gabriella remembers that her neighborhood during wintertime one time down in LA lost their minds when it hailed.
Oh, yes, very unexpected in that zone. And hail can be very dangerous depending on the size.
It's true.
So we've never
Absolutely.
had huge hail, at least in my hometown. So no car dents or anything as a result. All right. Before we move on, anyone else would like to come off mute and share? All right. Thank you so much to those that shared and put responses in the chat. It's fun to hear about what you enjoyed doing during winter growing up. So that brings us next to the program and reporting overview. And to start us off, I wanted to share some information that we have gathered on a dashboard that we created for the Birth Through Five grant funds. And I just wanted to highlight all the amazing work that has already begun with these funds. And I know a shorter time period for a grant makes it difficult sometimes to get all the activities that you want in and professional development if that's one of your activities in a shorter window of time. So we're just very impressed by the work that's already happening. We've gotten a lot of great information in the reports that have been submitted by each of you so far. And let's see, I just wanted to highlight, I realize when I'm pointing at something, I don't think you can actually see it. So that's unfortunate. But if you look down at the part that says develop and or deliver early literacy resources, for number of families that participated, the beige color in November, we had 697, which is a super high number. And just just again, really excited about all this work that is being done by all of you and your communities. And on the right side, the resources to date, we can see that the total family engagement activities so far have been 235. Total number of families that participated is 1,379, and total resources distributed, early literacy resources, is already at 1,054. So just wanted to really highlight the work that's happening and kind of give you a little visual of what we're seeing on our end based on what you have shared with us. And then this is the next slide. This is for the other two components. So develop and deliver culturally relevant trainings. And then below the activity of conducting community engagement activities. So you can see that in December, we had a whopping 67 staff members who, through their agencies, received a professional development training related to early literacy development. And on the right there, community engagement to date, there have been 14 activities that have already been done across grantees. So this, I won't talk more in depth about this information, but it will be in the slideshow when we send it out to you after this meeting. And so you'll be able to use that to kind of reflect on all the work that's been done so far. So just wanted to share that with all of you. All right, so now we're gonna just review the reporting requirements. I'm gonna go through it a little at a quicker pace because I know it is a review for the majority of you. So let's click onto that slide. So I copied the chart from the grant agreements that kind of outlines the requirements for this year of birth through 5 funding. So we had first the project plan, which almost all of you have completed already. There was a budget that was due before you could start claiming funds for your grant activities. And then for monthly reports, I wanted to highlight that we put in the grant agreements that there's a monthly performance report and then 2 different demographic reports. And we did mention this at the kickoff meeting, I believe, but if you've filled out the monthly reports already, we are not asking for demographic information. We put it in there because some of the leadership was still deciding if we wanted to collect demographics, and at this point, we are not asking for that information. We're asking for the more tangible metrics associated with the number of families attending, the number of events, and number of trainings offered. So just wanted to mention that because I don't want that to be confusing since it is in your grant agreements. And the reports are due each month by the 15th for the month prior. So for example, your December report was due on January 15th, and then it follows that for each preceding month. And then Brandon will talk more about the fiscal side, but we also have monthly expenditure reports, and those, Brandon, I shouldn't go into detail at all, right? Because you're going to cover it. Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Then, yeah, at the end of the year, have a budget reconciliation, and then there will be a final report to finish out the year. Are there any questions on that so far? And Brandon's monitoring the chat, so if you do have a question that comes up and you just don't want to come off mute and ask verbally, feel free to put questions in the chat. All right, so I basically already went over this information that they're due by the 15th for the performance reports. We're asking for specific information, mostly related to numbers of either staff or families, children or adults served, and then also a little narrative summary of the activity. I wanted to highlight too that I built the report with a good amount of space for you to put your narrative because I didn't want someone who typed up a lot of detail to not have space to enter everything that they wanted to include in their narrative. But it does not mean that you have to fill that many words, fill the box. It can be as brief as you would like in order to share all the pertinent information that you want to highlight about the work that you're doing for that specific grant activity. All right. And I'm not going to read through these bullet points for the metrics, but I wanted to leave it in here so that when we sent out the presentation, you can refer to this for each of the 3 activities, depending on which one you're doing, which metrics we are collecting, so which information we're asking if you're doing that bucket of work. So it's broken up into the 3 activities. And we did set up the report so that when you select your name, your agency's name from the dropdown, the activities that show up should only be the activities that you selected and are approved for within your grant, because some of you are doing one of the 3, some are doing all 3, and so it looks different. And that's why when you open the report, nothing shows up until you select your name. So I know I got some questions about that before, because when the report was open, it's like, where are the questions? But you have to click your name first, and everything's logic based in the template that we built. All right. So I wanted to also highlight um, that we would like to meet with you individually each month. We have some scheduled already, and some of our ESEF grantees already have standing meetings with us. And so we've just been having check-ins related to both birth through 5 and ESEF. But we do have some additional meetings scheduled with those grantees that are just receiving birth through 5 funding. And we haven't heard back from several that we have sent out invites to. And so that is one of the requirements in the grant, is that we have time to meet individually together. And it's a good time to just be able to connect, share any updates that you have, any questions, and then we can share any kind of evolving information as we get it. We also sent out contact forms that I think almost 100% of you have completed already. And we did that so that we don't miss anyone in our communications, because often, well, with your grant applications, there was only one main person, possibly two if there was a fiscal person, that were on the applications for this grant. And so we wanted to make sure that we include any other programmatic or fiscal folks in our emails if they are connected to this birth through 5 work. So if you haven't filled that out, I'm also going to send out the form in the email when I send out this presentation so that you can complete it. But again, we have it for basically everyone, almost everyone. All right. So we are going to also have bi-monthly webinars, and I realized that in the kickoff meeting, I said that we would meet in November, and I'm sorry that things shifted and I did not communicate that. So that is on me and I apologize. And we have shifted the date to be the 4th Friday, which is today is the 5th Friday, I think, officially, but it will be the 4th Friday next time, and continue in that on that schedule, but at the same time from 2 to 2:45. And so the next one will be Friday, March 28th from 2 to 2:45. And these meetings are not set up on a repetitive basis, so you'll get a brand new invite for that webinar. And again, if you are unable to be there, we send out the recordings afterwards. The goal is that at least one person from each agency or each grantee attends the webinar live. So yeah, I think that covers it for that one. We provide program and grant updates, and then hopefully time for questions and conversation as well.
Woohoo, me.
All right.
Funding update. I don't know if any of you have heard any news this week about some federal stuff. You can hit the next slide. But I just really wanted to reassure you all that birth through 5 funds are funded through the state of Oregon only, and they don't have any federal funds associated with them. So regardless of any federal executive order or anything of that nature, these funds will not be affected. So what that means for you and your grant is you will continue to have full access to your funds within the scope of your grant agreement. And DELC leadership as well as state leadership are actively monitoring the situation at the federal level, and they've put out a couple comments and such, and will provide further insight as needed. But just really wanted to, I didn't y'all, so
Brandon, you cut out, at least for me.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Do
Maybe
okay.
repeat that last part, because I
I
don't know
will.
if you cut
Yes.
out just for me or for everyone.
My apologies, y'all. Okay, my head.
Oh, we can't hear you again. Fun technological issues. There's always something, right?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. Um, My headphones were on their dying leg, so I apologize. Okay, so I'm just going to jump back to that third bullet point and kind of repeat because I'm not sure what was and wasn't heard. So currently, DELC and state leadership are actively monitoring the situation at the federal level in terms of the executive order and with funding, and will continue to provide insight and statements as needed. But I just wanted to reassure all of y'all that the funding for Birth Through 5 isn't affected. Not many of you reached out regarding it, but I just wanted to give that little bit of extra reassurance. All right, next slide. Grant office updates. Ew, I should make a theme song, guys. Okay, so most of you, if not all, should have your grantee specific. Yeah, absolutely. I know that it was a pretty intense time earlier this week, so just wanted to give that out. This is your monthly expenditure report. It is tailored to your agency. And I did just want to highlight to make sure everybody kind of saw. I'm gonna use a little animate, but this last column here gives you a total of your spending to date as well as your admin percentage. I'll be able to also monitor it, but it's just a really nice thing for you to watch, as well as then your remaining balance. I realize that it's in most sloppy kind of circles, so I apologize, but just wanted to kind of highlight that. And yeah, next slide. Just, oh, that stayed. Never touching the
That's
annotation.
really that's really
again.
funny that it left it on there. That's okay.
No, oh,
Oh,
good.
you
Okay.
did it. Okay.
Will it erase? Okay, now I'm not usually the one with technical issues, so this is fun for me. Okay. One thing I have noticed, and just to make it easier for y'all to access your funds, I just want to make sure y'all are attaching all the documents kind of needed. So any money you've spent on stuff, there's receipts. Or if you are doing like a draw to purchase or a draw for staff cost for the next month, just in there include either like an estimate of what it is, or even as simple as like a screenshot from Amazon of we're buying this book, and you know what I mean, just so we have it. So when they're going through, just to be really good stewards of state funds. And this is kind of that really stuff is like, that's really a little tedious, but if we knock it out of the park the first time, it just puts a lot of trust moving forward for this funding, since it's one time and like the legislative office, fiscal office is like really looking. And and yeah, if you have a staff, we have a couple that are having like their part-time staff be supplemented to full-time to do extra, like for those extra hours to come for Birth Through 5, just making sure that you have that very articulated correctly. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is my not so fun slide, so I apologize for that. So holding of funds. And this is a short grant. We now are at the point where we have 4 months. Well, almost, because it's almost February, till the end of this grant cycle. And so sometimes we have a little leniency if you're not up to date on some of your programmatic reports. Like if you're slightly behind and you put in a draw request or claim request into AMS, we have a little bit of wiggle room. We're at the point of the grant cycle where I don't have that flexibility, so we will need that. So if I get any submissions that and by submissions, excuse me, if I get any claims into AMS and you're behind on your monthly reports or haven't submitted your project plan, your claim is just going to be straight denied. An email will follow explaining why, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys that heads up. And same with just remaining in compliance with your grant agreement. if you haven't scheduled those meetings. We spoke with like leadership and they just feel it's really important to maintain the the word that I'm looking for. Maintain the response. No, I super apologize for I've had a morning.
I wish I could help you.
I
I
know,
I
I know.
sometimes can complete your thoughts, but
Yeah.
not today.
So sorry, y'all. My dog, he is totally fine, but he was hit by a car this morning. So my brain, like since this morning, like he's totally fine, luckily. But my brain is jumbled, so I do apologize. But we need this so that way the grant can function. That's the word I'm looking for. Smoothly function. So getting this all there, and just in compliance with your grant agreement. The reason I went over just some of the stuff that we do need attached, but I'll send it back as a modification so you can reattach it. And that is that. And I'll answer more questions if there's kind of more on that topic near the end.
Brandon, can I mention something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in relation to the monthly reports, I just wanted something I didn't mention earlier is that I think due to the fact that each of you executed your grant agreements at a different time, you know, kind of on a rolling basis as they came in, they were executed. I think it got a little confusing for people about, well, like my grant agreement wasn't executed in October, so I don't need to do the report for October, which that is logical. It makes sense. And so I wanted to mention and highlight that for our ease of tracking, we're asking that regardless of whether your grant agreement was executed during the month of October, that you still complete a report. And if you did not, obviously, if you did not do activities, you would just select no to the questions and submit the report. And that should take literally like 20 seconds or something if you didn't do anything in that month. And part of the reason for asking for this is that, as an example, someone might have executed their grant agreement in November or December, but because they knew it was in the process of getting executed, they actually started their grant activities October, and you're able to backdate and claim expenses during that month. So if we didn't ask for everyone to complete the reports for each month, we wouldn't be able to tell whether it was just a missing report, or if you hadn't actually begun activities yet or hadn't executed your agreement. So it just gets confusing in terms of like the information coming into us. And so again, we appreciate your kind of collaboration in doing the monthly reports starting in October, even if you're just now or just in December or whatever your schedule looked like in terms of actually initiating activities or executing your grant agreement.
Right.
Are there any
And
questions on that part?
like Emma said, you are able to claim funds starting October 1st. So anything that needs to get reimbursed. And if you've already submitted a claim but realize that there's stuff, just message me and we can make it work for your agency.
Okay. All right. And if there are questions, just come off mute and interject. So we are holding office hours the first Wednesday of every month. And in the recap email that I send out, I will link the team's invite for that standing meeting time. And that falls this month on next Wednesday. So if you do have pending questions, next Wednesday is a good time to ask, or at individual meetings that we're still working on getting scheduled with everyone.
Yeah. And
Heather.
oh, perfect.
Oh,
You saw. No, I was going to say Heather
oh,
raised her
yes.
hand, but
Yeah.
you had it.
Yeah, quick question about the slide that you had, Brandon, where you were talking about documentation for the financial pieces, like receipts and pictures. We certainly collect those. What I don't know is that typically what is submitted by our finance department when they submit their reports, or is it something we should submit in addition?
So what it will be, Heather, and I can talk to Celia, more about it too, because I actually have to give her a call after this meeting for another thing. But she will just need to attach it as additional the
Okay.
supporting documentation in AMS, where she'll also upload that expenditure report. But it's because everything is getting looked at by the legislative office, because they still don't know how much they're going to fund birth through 5 and what it's going to look like for next year. So it's all under scrutiny
Sure.
instead of just occasionally like one claim getting looked at from other grants.
And we can prop that in our office. We submit that for the finance department regardless, and we could even do extra things like pictures of book. I mean, we're happy to do that. I just don't typically see what they all submit.
Right.
I can
Yeah,
see
and I
this-
don't need like a huge super detailed list. Most
Okay.
people have just been if they are doing like super receipts, they're just like attaching it as a zip drive with it all in there, so I know it's there.
Gotcha.
So it's
Okay.
not, it doesn't need to be like a super detailed Excel spreadsheet with like everything nice and pretty with a bow. I
Okay.
just need the information in there that's like enough that I can disseminate that it correlates, so that way when the folks from the fiscal office are looking through each one and glancing, they don't have any questions,
Okay.
because this is just such a short-term grant.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody's funds to get held up because they have a question about why there was like a $40 Amazon charge.
Right. Just completely let us know if there's anything more we can do on this end. And if you ever want us on the calls, we do meet with finance, but we, if I know and they know on their end, we can just support each other in that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Emma. Was there another slide after the, oh, perfect.
There was not.
Okay, before
Did-
we, or
yeah,
as
go
we're
ahead.
here, Gabriella had messaged me earlier and I said I would bring it up at the end
Yeah.
here, yonder, about potentially doing something like a smart sheet form to send out, maybe with like this, not spreadsheet, this slideshow, for folks to share what professional development opportunities they have either offering or they're taking advantage of, so that way other agencies in the state who are also participating can like engage in them, just for folks that are looking for other opportunities. So I wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking that because this grant has such specific guidelines on what we can and can't spend PD funds on, I'm just wondering if we cross-reference the things that we know about and what we're connected to, it might be helpful for organizations who are looking for PD opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
think that's
I
a
love
good
the idea. So
I wonder, would an easy solution be for when I send out the email to not blind carbon copy everyone and instead like put everyone in the two box, and so then
well,
someone
I
can
was just
reply
thinking I could
to
very
all?
easily make a smart sheet form that just has like name of the PD and like a link or website for it, and then we
Okay.
can just send that list out to people,
Yeah,
because I could easily
great
make that
idea.
this afternoon. That
Okay.
wouldn't be hard. Yeah, unfortunately, Jennifer, for the state, we don't have access to Google.
It's very
I do love
unfortunate.
that idea. Gabriella also mentioned like a Google form for it, which would make it easy too, but yeah, we just
Yeah.
don't have access.
Well, and yeah, I guess when we were with ODE, which was before Brandon and I's time, but they did, program managers or program leads had Google accounts, and so they were able to create like shared workspaces where people could, I could upload a file for everyone to see or upload documents, and then people could add to them like a shared work collaborative space. But I think for security reasons related to Google and its usage, they got rid of it. So we're still they're trying to find ways to support us in finding those collaborative spaces to work with grantees, and we haven't figured out a great solution yet. So
But yeah, I love this collaborative information sharing. if anybody's been in the meeting with me when collaboration's brought up, you know, I'm a nerd, so I'm here for it.
So yeah, the slide that's up is just reiterating that for communications, program manager, there's my email and phone number. My phone service is a little spotty where I live, so email is preferred for me, but you can try at me at my phone number, and then Brandon for email and phone number. And there's the ESEF kind of general email, which you are also free to email. I think I recommend as the most direct way to just email like Brandon and myself in any of your communications. That way it just feels more direct to me. We check the ESEF mailbox as well. But all right. And then yeah, we're finished with the information we needed to share. And I know there's only a few minutes left, but we can stay a little bit later if there are more questions. But just wanted to open it up to more questions, wonderings, clarification that's needed for anything.
I'm gonna stop the recording though, Emma.
Okay. Yeah.
I just had a quick